Hey guys, what's going on? It's Logan here. Just wanted to go over a video with you today on the NSCA Personal Training Certification Test. Now, I took this test yesterday actually, and I kind of had the idea to potentially go over how I went about studying for the test and some things that I noticed were on the test a little bit more than others, so some stuff you might want to just kind of keep your focus on. I hope this is informative for individuals who are contemplating taking the test or might have some knowledge in exercise science principles already, but they just don't know how much they need to study for, if at all. So, the first thing I want to preface with is that this test it's pretty hard for a personal training certification test. With that said, I did pass and I actually got about a 90% on it. But those are due to a few reasons I'm going to mention below. It is pretty hard. You can't just go in and wing this test if you're just somebody who goes to the gym casually and just decide, hey, I want to be a personal trainer. Like, you'll need to put in a few months of studying, I would say. There is a lot of tricky questions, and the way they word stuff can kind of throw you for a loop for a little bit. So I wanted to first go over basically my background of information I had before going into the test, and then also how I studied on top of that background information. So for the individuals who don't know, I actually am about to graduate tomorrow, actually, with a degree in exercise science. So basically, this is kind of like the glorified personal training certification, if you will. We just go in depth a lot more with numerous aspects. But before I went to college to study exercise science, I did obviously have an interest in just knowing exercise-related principles in general. So I did a lot of research on my own about sophomore, junior year of college, just on basic techniques of lifts, basic nutrition, as well as just basic training principles. Like knowing that 1 to 5 reps is better for strength compared to 10 to 12 reps. Obviously, that's a little bit better for hypertrophy or muscle growth. Just really basic, kind of get you into the realm of exercise science world. And then from there, I decided that I really wanted to learn more about this and potentially get into a career with this. So I started studying exercise science in college. And in college, they obviously go through things a lot more in depth with you. And I wrote down a few things here. One of the big things is kind of anatomy and biomechanics related to planes of motion, how joint angles work, what joints do what type of movements, and stuff like that. So also potentially like which muscles where, that's another thing. But also the physiology aspects of things. So not just what your body is, but how things work inside your body, whether that's the energy systems and how different exercise affects different energy systems, potentially how exercise can affect your blood work, different things like that. Also, we went deeply in depth into kind of the muscle purpose, and this might be kind of along the lines with biomechanics as well, but basically, what does your bicep do? What are the things it can do? What are the things it can't do? How does it inhibit other actions? Just things like that. Another really important thing that got brought up, and this was a large portion of the personal training test, was actually different case studies regarding risk factors for individuals and if they need medical clearance for the given risk factors that they have. So that's actually a really important portion of the test, is kind of knowing the cutoffs for different individuals. Like What's the cutoff for having high triglycerides in the blood? What's the cutoffs for having high blood pressure, high blood glucose? What's the BMI for obesity? Potentially, what's the body fat percentage for obesity? And just being able to weigh all these different things that they throw at you and deciding if somebody should be consulted to a doctor before they have to exercise. And if not, where should you start them at? Obviously, if there's an individual who's coming at you with not that much experience, the overall volume and intensity is going to be much lower. But if it's somebody who's more trained and done stuff consistently and they just want more guidance on how to get better, your training and intensity is going to be way different from that beginner. So that's a really important thing I want to preface. The last thing from college was kind of more in-depth nutrition. And nutrition, I thought it was pretty easy coming into college to begin with. I think for the most part, just learning more about how different nutrients affect how energy is created was kind of the bigger thing. A lot of it was just learning stuff with the energy systems, but did learn more about nutrition. So that's basically my background information on just knowledge before actually going into the test. So when it came to studying, I really wanted to do as little studying as possible and to spend as little as possible in the process, because obviously I think I spent about $300 on the actual exam, and then I think it was $65 for the membership because I got the student membership, which is a super bonus if you are a student. I believe a lot of the recognizing organizations in exercise science have a student membership, ACSM, NSCA. I don't know if ACE does. I would assume so. I believe NASM does as well. Those would be things you have to look into, though. In studying, basically what I did was download the NSCA Pocket Prep app for the Certified Personal Trainer exam. In this app, there's about 650 questions that just get cycled through for you, and you just basically take practice tests. So you can do tests about 10 questions. You can go all the way up to 100 questions. You can just constantly keep mowing through these questions. And the really cool thing is it'll give you a different percentage of how well you do with different aspects of personal training. So they have like exercise technique, program planning, facility or like emergency procedures type thing. Facility operations, I think that's what it is. And then there's one other one. But basically, it'll tell you how well you do at that. So if you're killing it in the exercise technique category, you can decide to pick more questions from the other aspects of the test. And that's actually how the test is split up and scored as well. I think that's really beneficial. You can really zero in on what exactly you need. The app itself wasn't that expensive, actually. I think I only spent 10, maybe, it might have been like $20. It wasn't that much compared to some of these books and other practice apps and stuff you can get online. I thought it was well worth it, and knowing my background knowledge in exercise science, I felt like this would be enough. And with this studying I did, I started looking through these questions about 3 to 4 months before my exam. And I didn't really have any dedicated studying techniques. I just kind of went on the app whenever I was bored or riding the bus around campus and just knocked out some studying. So something you can do on there is called a quick 10 exam, where you just click a button right when you get in, gives you 10 questions, and you just answer them super quick. And I did a lot of those, actually. I maybe did a couple 50 question ones, but it was really sporadic how I studied. There'd honestly be potentially 4 to 5 days where I didn't even go on the app and stuff. So This definitely helped and kind of got me in the frame of mind of how the questions would be asked. But I'm going to give a large portion of my undergraduate degree in exercise science uh, most of the credit here, and I would hope so. If I'm dropping a lot of money on this degree, I would hope that it could at least get me a personal training certification, which it in fact did, and I actually scored very well, as I mentioned. So we're going to move actually onto the test here, and kind of a couple things that I think are really important to highlight. And the first thing I mentioned already was the case studies aspect. So you'll be given a client, they'll give you an age, male, female, give you some health information, blood work, previous training, and just say go. So where should you start with them? Do they need medical clearance? What are some special considerations with them? And stuff like that. That's a very heavily part of the test, and they actually do multiple questions off of one case study. So there was maybe a case study, all this information, and there was probably 3 or 4 consecutive questions just on that case study. So being able to interpret that and knowing a lot of the risk factors and signs and symptoms for cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, and renal disease, those are really, really important. Highly recommend knowing those by heart and potentially finding some practice case studies online. The next thing is exercise technique. They showed, it felt like it was a lot of videos. It probably wasn't, but I would say there was probably about 20 to 25 videos on somebody doing an exercise either wrong or correctly, and then telling you what should you fix, if anything. So for example, if somebody was doing a bench press and their elbows were way flared out like this, they could tell you, how would you correct this, or how would you cue it for the athlete? And you could either put, they don't need to do anything, everything's fine. You could tell them to bring their elbow in. It's all multiple choice, the entire test, so there's just a few things to pick from, but that's a very important thing, and not just for the videos too, and it's kind of knowing just general muscle actions in general. So if they ask you, what is the purpose of the bicep, and one of the answers is to flex the elbow or extend the elbow, that's something that you should really know, like right off the bat. If you need to think about that, that's probably not a good thing. You should know right away that the bicep helps with elbow flexion. And that's a really important part, because sometimes they'll show a video and they'll tell you, based off of this individual, what should you strengthen in them? What needs to be stretched in them? So if you know what muscle does what, as in like what muscle causes tightness, what muscle might be weak in a certain exercise, that's gonna help tremendously. And honestly, I would say if you know that, you're well on your way to probably about 50% of the test. That's a really, really important part, and something that should be emphasized. For good reason. That's, obviously keeping our clients safe and stuff, and just knowing what you're doing and how the body works, that's important. Those are the 3 really big ticket items that I think are important. But I also added in, for kind of some extra stuff, if you want some extra studying, just basic nutrition. So knowing, for example, the calories and macronutrients. So what is 1 gram of fat in calories? So knowing that 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories, 1 gram of carbs and protein is 4 calories. That's a really important premise to know. Knowing kind of how to look at somebody's diet and know how much of percentage of protein is coming from their diet. So say if somebody has a 1,200 calorie diet and you recommend them 30% of their calories come from protein, you would need to, 1, know how to turn the calories and protein into overall calories. So it's obviously however many grams you have times 4. So that gives you your total calories and protein. And then you can either divide that to find how many, what the percentage of calories is, or you could do it vice versa to find just the amount of grams of protein you need. So kind of going through that would be important as well. And the last thing was exercise prescription for special populations. So this could be the elderly, pregnant woman, and potentially, I don't think I had too many on younger populations, but those would be really good to know. There was a few dispersed questions throughout, and honestly, I think those are really give me questions that if you just took a little time to know some basic information, like after the first trimester, pregnant women shouldn't lay on their back because the increased size of the placenta actually decreases venous blood flow return, thus increasing the chances of potential heart complications during exercise. That's something that's super fundamental. And if you know that, that's a pretty big portion of exercise testing for pregnancy, or exercise prescription, I should say. There's other things as well, but definitely going through those special populations is important. And that's actually all I had for the test. One other thing I wanted to mention too was to bring a calculator. I totally forgot to bring one, so I was stuck kind of estimating and using a lot of guessing, educated guessing, I should say, throughout the test. There was lots of questions like, what's 30% body fat if somebody weighs this much? How much of that weight is body fat? So I kind of had to just guess based off of like 33%, which is 1/3, and then just kind of play with the numbers a little bit. And I did that for probably at least 10 to 15 questions. Obviously didn't really hurt me in the end. I still passed, but it will make your life tremendously easier. You don't need anything other than that. They do give you some scratch paper, but definitely bring a calculator. I crapped the bed on that regard. That would have made the test a lot easier. Probably would have finished a little bit quicker, but other than that, that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys found this informative. If you have any questions based on the test itself, how I got prepared for it, or just anything involving exercise science, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. This test it's a good one. It's definitely one that is respected in the fitness industry. So if you have this and go to a place for personal training, it's likely that you'll have no issues with your certification. It's a really good one. Definitely test your knowledge and you can't just walk in. So anyways, thanks for watching and we'll catch you in the next video.